Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as the One-Hand Mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we have here a John Deere S140, and today I'm going to show you how I basically proceed to diagnose a no-start condition. Just want to give you a little background on this, and yes, this is very dirty, but I figured I'd give you something that I haven't touched yet. I just basically pulled it in, and we're going to diagnose it all together, and they said that they replaced the battery, and they replaced the starter solenoid, and it doesn't start. So this is a S140. This comes with the twin-cylinder Briggs and Stratton engine. This has been a proven engine. It's been around for a very long time. And just by looking around, the first thing I'm going to do, because they said they replaced the battery, is I'm going to check to make sure these are tight. The terminals to the battery are tight. They should be tight. And the positive one is always the one that's loose. And this one is tight, which is good. We're going to go around to the other side. You can definitely see somebody has either cleaned up around here. You can see all the dirt right here, and it's weird how it's dirty there and it's clean here. And the rest of the machine is pretty dirty, and actually this only has 48.4 hours on it. So this has a 340 cold cranking amp battery, and that is awesome. This is a very good battery. I did notice that there's a lot of oil that has been sprayed around this area, and most of the time it's because not sure why Briggs and Stratton, two little openings with a notch in the center and then one opening on this side. And if you look at the dipstick itself, you have two notches here and you have a notch here. If you put them in backwards, let's see here, put it in backwards, it won't lock down. And people think, oh, you turn and twist and there you go. Well, what I think has happened is that somebody was driving with this and we got the oil dipstick locked in, and it might have sprayed oil everywhere, because normally you won't see oil back up in here unless it's coming out of your tube here. The oil level is also on the correct level, so they may have run this low on oil and they put oil back in it. And you can see right here, here's the starter solenoid, and it does look brand new, so they may have replaced that. It looks pretty new. I just want to check, since it does have oil, and the oil's in the correct spot, and if I didn't show you guys that, let me just wipe this off real quick. Definitely double check your oil. Make sure that you don't have any gasoline in it, which would give it an overfill condition. Make sure you check it just to make sure. Now that's a little bit overfilled, but let me smell it here just to make sure it doesn't smell like gasoline. No, it's definitely oil. And it's a little overfilled. Somebody probably overfilled that when they were replacing it from everything that sprayed all over the place. Make sure that the engine has compression. Now this is a twin cylinder, so when you turn this over, it's going to be hard and then soft and then hard, and it really does. That's your compression stroke right there. And this definitely has compression. If your engine was running low on oil and it, as I say, blew up, yeah, it feels like we have compression on both sides. So that's a good thing. But yeah, if you ever see oil all over on the ground, and granted there is a lot of oil where this is where the oil drain is right here, and you should definitely check that. If you look underneath here on the mower deck itself, right here, there's definitely oil. So this has sprayed oil and leaked all over the place. There's also signs of mice. Let me show you right here. This may be either a lot of grass or it could be mice right here. And then on the other side I saw some too. So right here, it could be a lot of grass, or, and actually that's grass there, but this is your spark plug wire right here that goes to your spark plug. Right in here is a lot of grass that's building up, or it could be from mice. And there are cooling fins in here. This fan up top, there's a big fan under here, they call it the flywheel. That pushes air over this engine. It's an air-cooled engine, it's not water-cooled. So it needs to blow air over the engine to cool it. If mice get inside this housing right here, you can have an engine overheat, you can have an engine seize, you can have an engine blow up, and that's all because the mice are in there and the oil level might be perfect. So that's why I always check. The easy way is check your compression by turning over your big fan on top here. I also found out that by looking at the gas tank over here, your gas gauge, which for the S100 series, and when they started making these gas tanks, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Everybody's like, oh, there's something wrong with my gas tank. Nope, this is John Deere's design. One of the poorest excuses for a gas tank design, because it intertwines with the fuel gauge. When you put gas in it and you push down on the tank, you see how the gas gauge is going up? I'm just pushing down on the gas tank with my fingers. That's all I'm doing. But it's showing that we hardly have any gas in it. Check your gas. It does show a little bit of gas in there, so I would assume that it has enough to start. But I tell you, if it's just out of gas, it definitely has gas in there now. So we're just going to let that go and see what happens here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to put the brake on, so that allows you to start the machine up while you're not sitting on it. Lock that in. Put it up into the choke position. And now this choke position here too, it's spring loaded. So you have to keep that in mind, that you have to hold this up on choke while you're starting it. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. Ooh. Okay, so that's telling me, one, it's either a dead battery or we have a starter. If you hear that noise. Now let me go ahead and show you where the starter's at. Okay, so this is your starter right here. When I go to turn it to crank, I'm hearing that starter. And what I'm hearing is it's not pushing the gear up into the flywheel. So this is your flywheel, and this should be spinning when I turn the key to crank. Now, a few things it could be. One, it could be a dead battery. Now, this battery is supposed to be brand new, so that may not be it. Two, you would think it may be the solenoid, but I will put in a link in the description below how to check your starter solenoid before you replace it. I have a good video on how to check that. And obviously the solenoid's working, and they did put a new one in, but it's working because we're getting power past the solenoid and to the starter. So you basically have to go with your battery, your ignition itself, your key switch, you turn it to crank, which throws power from the starter solenoid to your starter, and then that starter will crank over the engine. Only when you're in the crank position. But right now, the starter is not going up into the flywheel. It's either going to be packed up full of mice stuff or something's going on with the gear in there. Now, to check to make sure we don't have a bad battery, the easiest way for me to do this would be to jump start it, or put a battery charger in the jump start mode, which I'm going to do because it's the easiest way I can do it, just to confirm that we don't have a dead battery. My battery charger has a start button right here. It's a 50 amp start, so I'm going to put it up on, and it just stops. Mine just automatically just turns itself off on that one. So this battery is probably good, but leave it up there, see what happens. It's still, for some reason, this is not coming up. So I think your battery is good. I'm going to disconnect this. You can use a jumper pack. You could double check by recharging your battery, even though it is a brand new battery. I obviously don't think it's the battery. Right now, we're going to take off the top of this and get into it. What we should need is a 3/8 socket, 5/16 socket, and 1/4 inch socket to be able to get all this off. And I start by taking off the air cleaner cover, get the air cleaner bolt. There's one bolt that holds in the big housing here. This is pretty straightforward. It's not hard to do. Take the air cleaner. Oh, there's two on this one. Okay. Just so you know, this is a new machine. I've never seen it before. It's never been in a shop. This air cleaner gets really dirty. If you put a pre-filter on that, you won't get dirty. And if the pre-filter gets dirty, you throw that away, and then it'll keep you from having to replace this expensive part. You can get them on Amazon a lot cheaper too, but just keep a pre-filter on it, and it'll keep your air filter much cleaner. I have a video on that too. This is a 1/4 inch. There's two of them here. Must be a little bit newer style of an engine. The old style engines only had one. I'll take these out. Remember where these screws go. It's pretty self-explanatory, but just don't put them in the wrong places. We have 5/16 on top here, and that will take off the fan. Since I have my 5/16 on, I'm just going to take off these two 5/16. Just take off these two here. And you have to be very, very careful when you put these back in. You're screwing these into plastic, and you don't want to, this is just going to hang off the side, but you don't want to tighten these too tight or you'll ruin your plastic. These two here to go to your fuel pump are different than the ones that go in your air cleaner, so make sure you put them back where they came from. Then you need to put your 3/8 socket on. And you just have to loosen these up. You don't have to take them all the way off. Should be able to pull this up now. Oh boy. Yep, definitely have mice. That's not just packed grass. If it was packed grass, it'd be all over. It wouldn't just be here. Now this is your starter right here. And this gear right here is supposed to shoot up into this flywheel's gear. And I'm just going to show you, I'm going to go ahead and try to crank it one more time. We're going to watch this starter gear right here. All right, so it's not shooting up. It's stuck in a down position. And I do believe there's a couple different reasons why. One of them is this is obviously mice. And two, there's oil that has sprayed all over the place from possibly driving this around with this off. We're going to go ahead and clean this up and we'll be right back. As you can see, it's much better now, cleaned out the mouse nest. I'm going to throw up a couple pictures that I took right around in here where it was very gooey and yucky, and I think this is definitely mice droppings here and also some incorporated oil from, you can see down here too where the oil was just dripping way down in there, and yeah, it was splashing all over the place. So I think between the mice and the droppings and the oil, this is sticking, this should spring up. I went ahead and there's a collar on the starter right here that has two flat spots on it down here. I'm going to have to take the starter off, and the bolts back up in here are really, really tough to get to. We're not going to do that right now. I'm just going to see if we can 100% confirm. I'm using a pair of vice grips, and I don't want to have too much pressure on it because obviously you don't want to break it. But I just want to put a little pressure on this collar so I can hold it. This is more like my extended hand right here. And then I'm going to put a screwdriver up underneath the gear and see if I can pry up on that because it's really stuck. And up, there it goes. Okay, so it was really just stuck down. And you can see how it's supposed to spin. And what it does is when you put power to the starter, it spins this up, and it spins up into these teeth right here, which in turn cranks the engine over, and then everything gets happy. Now it's freed up right now, which is really good. To clean this properly, you have to take the starter off the machine, and you have to basically take the starter gear apart in here and clean it. But you can get yourself a toothbrush and scrub around on here. You might be able to do it the best you can while it's on the machine. And it's not for everybody to try to take these starters off. I can say that I will be taking the starter off, and I'll probably do that in the next video for you guys, just so you have a video on that. But as far as getting this, it's now unstuck, and we're gonna go ahead and see if it'll start. Now, if you take this outside, I use high compressed air. I know everybody doesn't have high compressed air. You do what you gotta do. Get your gloves on, because obviously it has mice in here. Get all the contaminants out. If you have a handheld leaf blower, that'll help a lot. Always remember that you have an opening here where your air cleaner went, so you always have to remember to put something in there. Don't overdo it, because if you get something pushed down in the throat and you can't get it back out again, it's going to get sucked in the engine, your engine won't run. Just remember that you have to take this out before you start it, because if you crank the engine over with this in, this will get sucked into the engine, and it most likely will get stuck in your carburetor and it will not run. So make sure if you put something over this or in here, just make sure you take it out. You could also put a plastic bag around here with a zip tie on it or rubber band to help it too. Let's go ahead and see if it'll start. Make sure you put your parking brake on, lock it in. If this battery is good, which I think it is, it should crank this engine over. And there you have it. Let's see if it'll do it again. Now, if you look real close right here, I want to show when I crank it how that shoots up and then into the flywheel, just like so. And then when you take your hand off the key crank, it goes back down to the normal position. What has happened here is maybe in this area they didn't use their tractor for quite a while. The mice got in here, collected everything up. The oil that was already sprayed up in here, it blended with their poop and their debris, and it got stuck on here. So when they went to crank it, this was stuck in a down position. Okay, so let's go ahead and just see if it'll start. We're gonna put it up to, we can run it without the shrouding on for a little bit just to see if it'll run. Okay, so we know 100% that this gear is the problem with this. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and remove the starter. I'm gonna clean the starter gear. And if you guys wanna end here, basically figured out how to start the engine up, We found out what the problem was. If you watch it till the end, I'm going to go ahead and show you the tools that were needed today. We're going to go ahead and remove that starter now. First thing we need to do to remove the starter is disconnect your battery. I always disconnect the negative side first. Okay, so it's a 10mm socket. The nut and bolt on here. Just disconnect that and put the bolt back in. Get this out of the way. Now this cover needs to come off here, and it's just a bolt that's actually down under here, and that's usually an 8mm socket. And then it just comes right out, so you have a tab here, and you have a tab here, and it just goes into these openings right here. And I can already see there's so much oil. This oil here, that's from somebody having that, running it with the cap off. And while it's off, this is your oil drain here, and you can go ahead and just tighten that up with a adjustable wrench or something, just to make sure that it's not loose. We're gonna go ahead and do that too. But this is a starter. We need to take off the outside nut. The problem with taking this nut off is that you wanna hold the inside nut here and take this nut off, because if you try to just remove this nut and this spins, you can break the internal parts. So you have to hold that inside nut. And I have found a very skinny wrench that I actually made just to put on the inside, and then they're both 7/16. Counterclockwise, lefty-loosey. Actually, that was already loose, huh? I don't know why they would have taken this off, but that was definitely a little bit on the loose side. I'm glad we're taking the starter off. I'm gonna put the nut back on just so I don't lose it. And then we have a bolt here and a bolt here. A couple different ways you can take that off. I have found out that that is a 40 Torx head. I'm going to put it into an adapter that came with the kit that I got. I'm going to use a 1/4" extension, and I'm using a 3/8 ratchet with a 1/4" adapter to my 3/8 ratchet because I need a lot of leverage. These bolts are always hard to get off. Taking the easy one off first. Now, to get to this one that's hard right here, they have flat sides on the starter, and you just want to line up that flat side the best you can to get a good line into that bolt. Actually, I'm using the camera just so I can see where it goes. And it's a little bit on an angle, but you can get it. Now, after I got them loosened up, I'm going to go ahead and put my electric ratchet on there just to make it a little bit easier for me. And you want to bring them out pretty evenly so they don't get binded. This one here sometimes gets binded up on the back side of the starter. All right, I think it's going to drop down. All right, you just have to, if you need to, get yourself a magnet so you don't lose your bolts. There's one. And I'm holding the bottom with my arm. And I know you guys are gonna be like, how are you gonna get it back in there? We'll get it back in there. You're gonna drop it down. And out it comes. Mind yourself when you put it back together again. Right here, we have wires. And the wires must go behind the starter, but they must be positioned where you don't crush them, all right? So make sure that your wires are below the crush zone, which is the back plate of this. You just have to make sure they don't pop up. They have to be below that right there, and you'll be fine with that. All right, so now we go over to the bench. Right here is our problem. To take this off, you actually have you have to push this has to get pushed down. It actually has, you can see all this stuff right here that, you can see that stuff underneath that cap. That's like mice. There's a spring right here. And this is how, this thing just goes up and down by a spring, and it was stuck in a down position like that. And I want to clean off all this stuff here. A little bit of penetrating lubricant helps. You don't want to have any lube on this when it goes back on the machine though, because lubricant will get dirt stuck to it, any kind of lubricant. And I know you guys are always going to say, oh, use a dry lubricant. Don't use any lubricant. You don't need it. Trust me. I put lubricant on there because we need to get this cap to push down a little bit, and right now it's being stubborn. I'm going to tap it a little bit. Just a gentle tap, and nope, it's still really, really stuck. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to line up this little C-clip in here right here that has an opening, and it's really hard to see this, but we have to line it up with this opening right here so we can get the C-clamp off. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the vise so I can get a better grip on this. Basically, I use the vise as my extra hand, and we need to get that clip lined up the opening. I'm using a pick. All right, so right now we have this little C-clip right here. It's lined up with this opening right here. Okay, so here's my special tool that actually takes this off. If I find one of these on Amazon, I'll put it in the link in the description below so you guys can get one. But it has a collar on it that fits over the collar here. We have to be able to get this collar down so we can get this over here and pull it off. I think there's so much mouse crap underneath there that we have to be able to get this collar down. Oh, there is so much. Here's the mouse crap that I'm talking about. See, I'm glad I took the starter off, because that right there, you wouldn't have seen this on the machine, and because I was trying to move this up and down, I figured it out. And this is the kind of little stuff that you have to pay attention to when you're doing this kind of job. This is going back to a customer, and I don't want this to come back to haunt me, so you do what you gotta do to get the job done correctly. All right, so now I'm able to push this down, which should allow me to get to this collar a little bit easier. It still has some stuff up in there, I can tell, because this collar should move down a little bit more than that. Hopefully you guys will be able to see this, but you're pushing down on the whole collar while you're going to crank in the end here. These two little hooks are going to grab the inside of the clip. At least that's the goal. I think we're having a problem with debris underneath it. Basically, I'm pressing on this side with my arm, and you can see that it's actually working now. And unfortunately, a lot of times you lose the clip, it bends. I'm going to loosen this back up again because I can see that it's actually starting to come off of there. Looks like I got one side. You can see it coming out now. Oop. Okay, I found it. Sometimes you can reuse these. If you don't break them, you're going to have to push that back in again. Let me just see something. But see, this is the other tool that you're going to put the clamp in, press that clamp together again, put it inside there, and then you're going to rest it on top, and then you're going to hit this with a hammer, and it should push it all down at once. But let's go back at taking it apart. This should come up like so. Underneath here is where we get the recess to push that down. And there was just a whole bunch of debris in there. So now you have a spring. Remember which way this washer goes. This is a spring washer. All right. The spring washer was actually facing up as it's sitting on top of this plastic piece here. Put that down here. Then you have your gear. Now this gear is now unstuck. It's not stuck anymore. I'm not sure there. Okay, so it only goes on one way. All right, it has a little collar here, and that's the piece that you can see how dark it is right here. I'm actually going to take this to the wire wheel and clean it up. You could also use a wire brush, clean that up, and all you can see right here too, it's so gooky. It's got stuff in there. This is like oil and mice crap right here. And this is what may heat up when you start the engine and run it for an hour or two when you're out there doing your yard work. This will heat up and it'll melt. And then the starter gear will stick back down again after it all dries up. And yeah, so I needed to take this off. Now, this comes right off the shaft like so. This is metal, this is plastic, and there is no needed lubricant. That's how it works. No needed lubricant at all. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up, but that's not our part that works. This has a collar on it right there. It goes on the collar there, and it has to go all the way down and set in. So this has to spin with this collar, then you know you're set down in there properly. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, and we'll be right back. Okay, so just so you guys know, I'm using a wire brush, Harbor Freight. This I get from Harbor Freight. Super heavy duty cleaner degreaser. If you guys want to see how I wash my machines, this is what I use along with some awesome stuff. It's called Awesome. But I have a bottle here of this. This I use around the shop. I only put a little bit in and I put, I guess that's about 10 ounces of the concentrate and the rest of it water. And then I basically, this is a degreaser, and it really does work very well. And sometimes you just have to let it sit for a couple minutes. And all I'm doing is scrubbing that off because we don't want this bottom of this gear to get stuck again. Okay, so as you can see, I got them both cleaned up. You know which way it goes because there's a collar on this, and this collar is what was sticking down on the starter itself. That goes face down on the starter. The gear itself is in really good condition. I even cleaned the inside of this out, but there's no, don't use lubricant. Again, I can't say that enough. You don't need lubricant. But this goes over the shaft of the starter, and inside here, yes, a little bit of lubricant wouldn't hurt. This will go over your shaft, and this basically spins. And the only reason why you put lubricant on this is so you can get this back off again. That's the only reason. So I'm going to put a little bit of Never Sees on that. Not much. You don't need much at all. And they're designed to pretty much come off unless they've been rusted on by weather and moisture. I'll put this back down over that. And I did clean up around here, even though that has nothing to do with it, because the starter gear itself is sticking here. All right, I'm not using any lubricant on this. We don't want any lubricant on it. I'm going to go ahead and put that down. It just slides down. Then a spring goes like that. This is the spring washer, which faces up. The cap itself, I'm actually going to clean that up. Okay, so I cleaned the cap up the best I could. It looks pretty darn good. It's clean. That goes over here like that. And what you have to do is you have to push down on that when you're taking it off, just so you know. Now, this got messed up because we had to do what we had to do. And if you guys you need to use this, which I think we should be able to use this again. I'm going to take this out of here. A lot of guys, you can just use a pair of pliers. I'm going to go ahead and use my vise. You got to be careful if you're using a pair of pliers or a vise to push this back in again, that it may shoot out and you don't want to. Okay, so as I was saying, when you go ahead and push this together, I just clipped my videographer, and I think she's going to sue me. So you got to be careful you don't lose this. We just spent the last 10 minutes looking for this. And yeah, so you want to get it back to exactly the way it was. I think we're going to be fine. I think it might have to be in just a little bit more. And again, everybody close your eyes because this can shoot. I'm going to try a little bit of a safer way. All right, we're going to try that. That's much better. So what this has to do, if you can't get this to work, then you have to buy a new one, because this has to sit down inside this, and it has to be flush inside there. So it has to sit in there, and then it's going to sit in a groove in here. Let's go ahead and set this back up. I'm only pressing on the outside edge of this. It won't hurt anything here. There's magnets in here. You have to be really careful. You don't want to drop your starter. You can ruin it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put that on. Now this is a one-shot deal. You lay it on top. I have a special tool that I use for all my punches that holds the punches. This is actually going to expand. You can see that's why there's lines in it. It expands. Goes over the top. Just going to go ahead and smack that once. And as you can see, it's right down. It's sitting in the recess. It's in the recess of the shaft, and all is good. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push this around so the opening is not sitting here. Not that it would ever pop out, but this has to be flush. The pin has to be down in the collar of this recess. Everything is working as it should. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this back on again. Okay, so putting this back up in here, I'm going to try to put this bolt in. Make sure your wires are out of the way. Just going to hold it up there. If you're not careful, you can start that one crooked. I'm going to try to get this one started first. Okay, I have this one started here. I'm gonna go back to this one. This one actually didn't look like it was going in straight, so I didn't like that at all. Make sure your wires are not jammed, pinched between it. It'll go in easy if it's straight. If it's crooked and it's not going to go in easy, then take it back out and start over. This one here, I thought I had it started. All right, it's going in nice and easy. Try to put them in evenly. Then I'm going to get my big ratchet in here and tighten them up. Okay, now important, move your wire underneath the starter to make sure that everything is not stuck. If these wires behind the starter don't move freely, then they're stuck behind the starter and you will have major problems in the future. Okay, so everything's back together good here. I'm gonna go ahead and put the positive lead on the starter. Thin wrench on top. I'm holding this nut so it doesn't move, so I can tighten this one up. That's got to be tight. Before I button all this back up again, I'm going to go ahead and put the negative back on just to make sure we confirm that everything's back to normal again before we put the covers back on. Okay, we're going to go ahead and try to crank it, make sure it's okay. All right. All right, like brand new. I'm going to go ahead and clean up in here a little bit. Better than it was. When you put this back down over, everything should pretty much line up, and you have to slide down right here. There's a tab here, and there's a tab on the other side, and that will line up with the tab right here. Slide that in there like so. And then you have to make sure that sometimes your sheet metals has to be pushed in. You got a bolt right here that actually vibrated in a little bit. They should all slide down on their collars. You can go around the other side. Sometimes you got to push in the metal, the aluminum a little bit right here to get to go over, like so. And then before you tighten all these all up, try to get all your shoulders past the plastic so that they won't bind up and everything will go in perfectly. So before I tighten it all the way up, it's in the collar right there. It's good. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and put my 2 screw/bolts. These are actually screws, but they go into a plastic here, so you have to be careful you don't over tighten them. Do not over tighten, they will strip very easily. And once they're tight, when I get to the last one, I just tighten everything up. Go around to your outer one. Fuel pump had 2 screws with the 5/16 socket we'll put back on again. And these, I just left all the bolts in here, and you just have to line them up. And again, you don't want to strip these out. Everything is going into plastic. These are plastic studs on the flywheel. 5/16 socket. I try to get them all started before I tighten them up. Okay, they obviously need a new air filter. Put a new air filter in with a pre-filter, and I actually use, it's like a motorcycle tack up on the pre-filter. If you guys are motorcycle enthusiasts, it's a spray foam that you can use, and I just put it all over that. It holds dirt so much better, doesn't make a mess like oil does, doesn't soak through the pre-filter into the air filter. I'll put that up on the bench when I show you guys the tools. Put the date and the hours, just so you know that you have a new air filter on a certain date and the hours that you installed it. It's a good reminder. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use an adjustable wrench just to, it was actually loose right here on the oil drain. And you don't want to tighten them too tight because you can crack the block. I like to have the cap, make sure your cap to drain the oil is facing up so you can see where the pin is. And that pin is locked in when it's to the left, and you unlock it to the right and you pull it out to drain your oil. Just make sure that it is in the locked in position. Okay, so we're tightened up there. I cleaned up the cover. I'm gonna go ahead and pressure wash this whole machine anyway, but just for the video's sake. This bolt here has a little stationary washer on it that keeps this bolt from falling out. So if you have somebody who hasn't played with the machine much, they should stay in there for you. And all you have to do is put your tabs in where they belong in the front of the frame here. And then it should line up right here with your frame. 8mm socket, that'll tighten that up. Snug that up, good to go. All right, let's go ahead and just confirm that we're fixed. Start it up. And there you have it. We diagnosed a no start condition down to, it was basically mice error and oil that had splattered over the engine, that had gotten the mice stuff gooped up, made a goop that stuck the starter gear down. That's pretty much it. We're fixed and ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and take this out. We're going to wash it up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead right now and show you the tools that we use today. Okay, so from left to right, we have, definitely going to want some rags. Gloves if your skin gets irritated. I have an electric 1/4" ratchet that I always use in all my videos. This is a adjustable wrench. These are the two tools that they might come as a kit, and I'll have to see if I'll do some research. If I can find them, I'll put them in the link in the description below. This is just what I hold punches with, so it helps me out, and that's what helped me hold this tool here. Pair of pliers, a couple different ratchets that I use, 1/4" and 3/8 drive, a couple of 1/4" extensions, 3/8 to a 1/4" adapter, so I get some leverage, 1/4" socket, 5/16 socket, 8mm, 10mm, 3/8, number 40 Torx. I used a thin 7/16 wrench, 7/16 wrench to get the nut off the starter. This is just a wire brush I used to clean. Flathead screwdriver, pick, hammer, pair of vice grips. The stuff in the background here, we have some degreaser that is great. I'll put, you can get that, well, you can get this at Harbor Freight. That's where I get it from. This is a foam filter spray that a lot of people use for motorcycles. Now, this is an old bottle, had for a long time, but if you guys can find a foam spray, that works great. It's tacky. It's not actually, it won't go through the pre-filter and ruin the air filter. It's great stuff. PB Blaster, this is a little bit of copper-based, never seize, anti-seize, sheet sandpaper, and this is just a kit that I had my number 40 Torx in. That's pretty much it for the tools that we needed today. So that pretty much wraps it up for how to diagnose and repair a no-start condition on a John Deere S140. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.